Hey, welcome back to another video. If we haven't met each other before, my name's Liz and I'm just here to candidly share my thoughts and experiences on the road to the best version of myself. So today's video is part, I think, three of this epic road trip that I just recently went on, where I traveled from my hometown in Queensland all the way up to Darwin. I went to Darwin for the very first time, and then all the way down to Uluṟu, which has been a goal of mine to visit this spectacular place for a few years now, and I finally got there. So in today's video, I'll be covering off one of the big goals I've had on my bucket list for quite some time, which was running the 10K loop around Uluṟu's base. So if you haven't seen part 1 and 2, I will link those videos below. But essentially, by the time I got into Uluṟu, I think I was over a week into my road trip journey at that point. I'd seen some spectacular places in the top end, as they call it, up in the Northern Territory. And yeah, had met some fabulous people, caught up with a friend up in Darwin. We checked out Kakadu together, and then I continued my journey south down to Uluṟu and all of the other spectacular places the red centre of Australia has to offer. So when I first got to Uluṟu, I was driving up to the campsite. It was later in the afternoon, the first day that I got there, and I decided that I'd just pull into the campsite, get myself situated, and I'd go into the national park itself the very next day. So if you are new to Northern Territory, as I was, there's no campsites available inside the national park. The national park is during the day only. I believe it's 7:30 p.m. The park closes. So I booked the campsite that was the closest campsite to the national park to try to take as much advantage of the opportunity of being in the area as I could. So the campsite that I stayed at was the campground, which is attached to a caravan park, which is attached to a resort. So it's the Ayers Rock Resort. So I stayed at the campsite there in one of the tent sites. I didn't really need much, and that's the convenience of driving around in my camper car. So yeah, if you're new here, I do road trips in my Subaru Forester. I folded down the back seats and converted it into a bed and have like a tent that I attach onto the back of it, and essentially that's my camper setup. It was something that was super affordable, and it was a way for me to be able to get on the road sooner rather than having to wait for saving up enough to be able to get what is one of my dream goals, which is to have a camper van. But yeah, I decided I wanted to get on the road sooner than that and made do with the setup that I already had. So that's where I was staying throughout this little YouTube series. I'm going to just talk about my experiences, the reflections that I've had on this journey, but also maybe just some little travel pro tips if this is something that you're interested in doing as well. So I just wanted to share the little things that I learned along the way that made that trip even more spectacular. So one of my first tips of this video would be of my whole road trip, this campsite. So I booked 4 nights at the Ayers Rock Resort campground in advance. I think I booked it a good 4 or 5 months in advance to the trip. It was the only thing I booked in the entire road trip in advance, and it is one that was very, very worthwhile booking. It's something that books out quite a bit in advance, particularly during the time period that I booked it for. So it is during what they call dry season, so that's winter, and it was school holidays as well. I hadn't planned for that, but it was just when I could get leave from work, and so it's a very busy time of the year, and it does book out weeks or even a month or 2 in advance. So that was the one that I did book in advance, and I was really happy that I did. Most of the time on my road trips these days, I do like to be quite spontaneous and just see where the day takes me, but I am really glad that I booked that because it did allow me to have some pretty awesome experiences so close to the national park. So as I'm driving up to Uluṟu, it was just such an awesome feeling. I think if you haven't seen Uluṟu before, it's just one of those places, and I'm going to keep saying this in this video, but you simply must see it. It's this huge rock in the middle of the desert, but it's a whole other thing seeing it for the very first time. It pops up from the landscape as you drive towards it, and you're just like, wow, like it's so huge. This thing is so huge. So it was pretty awesome. I had to pull up and take a quick little photo, and I had my GoPro on my dash, so I was able to sort of capture a little bit of the landscape as I was driving around as well. So I'm glad I caught that little moment on my GoPro. So that was a pretty awesome experience. Just even seeing it and knowing that the very next day I was going to get an up close and personal look the very next day. So essentially, yeah, that first day I got there, I just pulled into the campsite. And yeah, got myself situated and ready for a pretty exciting day the next day. So the next morning I wake up, I'm obviously full of beans. I wasn't in any super hurry getting up in the morning, partly due to the fact that it was between 4 and 6 degrees in the morning. So it was pretty cold. I mean, that's what you get from being in the desert. That's Snoopy if you haven't met him before. Um, yes, hello, darling. Um, so yeah, it was pretty freezing in the morning. So was I super enthused of getting up super early? No. Um, yeah, so I missed the sunrise that morning, but I got up at a reasonable time. I think I was up at about 8 or 9 a.m. and got ready and drove off to the national park that morning. So where the campsite's situated is so much closer than any other campsite around. So it was only, I think, 20 minutes, maybe less, to actually get to the national park. You go through a big gate. You pay for a pass. I think it was like $30 to $35 for a 3-day pass. I don't believe there's an option for a 1-day pass. And that's another reason why I think for me personally, it felt really worth it to have several nights at the campsite being there, because to get into the park, you have to buy that several day pass. And if you're only there for 1 day, it means that you're kind of wasting, 2 days of your trip, or 2 days of the pass rather, that you've just purchased. So I think it's totally worth being there a couple of days, in my opinion. So I'm really glad that it sort of worked out that way. So I drive into the park and I go for a bit of a drive, and it's just the whole time I'm just saying out loud, I'm just saying like, wow, 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 this is so cool. I think I didn't realize yet how spectacular the landscape is, and just the colors. Like, I'll include as much of the footage that I managed to capture as I can in this video. And it's just this incredible, quite breathtaking contrast between the red earth, the bright, clear sky, because it's dry season, so there's barely a cloud around. In saying that, apparently it bucketed down rain about the week before I got there. So, I mean, that would have been pretty spectacular to have seen. But the weather had completely cleared up by the time I'd gotten there. And the beautiful landscape, there was a lot more plant life there than I was expecting, actually. And yeah, that was something pretty special to see too. So one of the first things I did when I pulled up at the car park is I don't know about you, but like when I'm on holidays and just in my general life, there's always this sense of hurry. There's always this sense of busyness, and I need to get this done. Like, I'd woken up that morning with the goal that I was going to run the 10-kilometer loop around Uluṟu that day. It was a big goal of mine, and I wanted to take advantage of the perfect weather that we had. So I knew that day was going to be the day. I had 3 whole days to spend at Uluṟu, but I decided that was going to be the day I was going to do it. And there was a sense of urgency and this pressure on myself to get started. And I sort of realized when I got there, I was like, there's literally no rush. I have all day. And that's another little pro tip I would say is, I mean, I think I can imagine any time visiting Uluṟu, it's going to be pretty spectacular. But I think going in dry season, going during winter when it's nice and cool, I think a huge advantage of going that time of the year is, yes, it's probably a bit busier with tourists, because of exactly the reason I'm describing. But because the weather is so good and it's a nice cool temperature all day long, it does mean that you can take advantage of the hikes, the trail runs, just being outdoors all day, rather than only having options in the very early hours of the morning, or late in the afternoon towards the evening. So I think going in winter was a great option for that. It meant that I was in no hurry, and it meant that I could basically do this run at any time in the day and I wasn't going to get super hot. So yeah, I'm really glad I stopped myself in that moment, and I decided to just take it easy and cook myself some breakfast. I think the great thing about being in your camper car, and I'm sure this is the same when you've got a camper van or a trailer and things like that, but unlike just doing a day trip in a car, you've got your whole life in the car with you. So like, I can make a little snack for myself, make a little meal for myself anytime I want. All my gear is with me at all times. So I think that was kind of cool. So I basically popped open the back of my car and cooked myself a little baked beans and cheese little toasty, and I made myself a little coffee, grabbed my chair and like took my chair into like just like a nice little like viewing area where a lot of people congregate, And I just pulled up there and just slowly ate my breakfast and just enjoyed this quite spectacular view that I found myself in. And it was so nice to just take it all in, drink in this spectacular sights. I'll include the photo that I took when I was right in that spot having my breakfast. It was a pretty awesome moment. Then after my breakfast, I put everything away, I cleaned up, and then it was time for that run. So I just chucked on my little vest, hat, sunscreen, all of those things. It was even still cool enough that I could still wear a little coat, a little light little jacket, and off I went. Why run it? Why run the 10K loop instead of walking it? So there's two options as far as I understand. You can either, what three options, I guess, technically, is you can walk around it, you can run around it, and the third option is you can get a bike and bike around it. I saw most people were doing the walk around version or the bike around version. I think there's even a place in the national park where you can even hire bikes, which is pretty cool. I saw several families where the whole family was on bikes going around the loop, which I thought was a pretty cool way to do it. I think running around it, for me personally, I think that really enhanced the experience. There are portions of the 10K loop where it's very much the same scenery for quite a few meters. So I don't think you're actually missing anything by running it instead of walking it. And the thing is too, I stopped constantly to make sure that I had a look at all of the little lookouts, read all of the signs with the stories from the traditional owners. I think that was really, really important. And yeah, took plenty of photos and videos and plenty of just standing there going, wow. So yeah, don't get me wrong. I certainly drunk in every moment, but I think running around it, for me personally, I think, yeah, it was so much fun running around it. I've gotten to a place in my fitness where I'm really starting to enjoy running. I think I'm going to do a whole other video about running very shortly. And it's been pretty transformative for me, and just it is such a joyful, wonderful feeling getting to the point where you're fit enough where quite slowly, I'm not a fast runner, but you get to the point where you can run pretty constantly for longer periods of time, and it feels easy. Everything just flows and it just feels easy. That is an amazing feeling to get to. So if you're not a big runner, as I wasn't several years ago, and you're wondering why it's kind of nuts why I decided to run around it instead of just walk around it or bike around it, that's part of the reason. So it's sort of almost like a celebration of how far I've come with my fitness journey so far. And that was a wonderful, wonderful way to be able to celebrate that. Yeah, it was just genuinely fun, and it is a way to be able to see more of a spectacular landscape in a shorter amount of time. I'm really glad that I did that. I did another hike, a few days prior, and then a few days in ahead as well, where I did run portions of it, and it does mean you can cover more ground in a shorter period of time, so you do get to have more of an experience in a way. So that's another reason why I quite enjoy running or trail running. There was this moment as I was sort of heading around, I don't know, one not a corner. It's Uluṟu's round the whole way around, but it's sort of like oblong shaped, and it's sort of like you get around like an edge bit. I was going around the edge bit, and it was sort of in the shadow of the rock itself, so it was just so nice and cool. And at one portion, it was really interesting because one of my friends was like, "Oh, is it really busy with the tourists there?" And I was like, "Surprisingly, no. Like it should be the busiest time of the year for the rock to have visitors." But there were portions of that track, several times on that track, where I was completely by myself. And there was this one particular moment, which is just like, I think it's just going to be locked in my brain forever. And why this contributes to this day being one of the best days of my life is because I was running along this track. There was no one else around. It was nice and cool. I was looking at this quite spectacular scenery. Like, it was just, in my opinion, it was one of the most beautiful sort of angles of Uluṟu when I was there. And I was just like running along and just was like giggling like a little kid. I was just like, oh my God, this is fun. I was like, hee hee, like just running around, just genuinely just feeling just such joy and freedom in that moment. It was just so cool. So I think this is going to be locked in my memory forever. And it was just, yeah, just revisiting that feeling of what it's like to just be a happy little kid just running around in my backyard and just thinking, well, this is the backyard I'm running around in right now. It's pretty freaking spectacular. And I think just this feeling of just like, I'd known for a few years ago that going to Uluṟu, running around the base of Uluṟu, for some reason I just had that really locked in my brain that I just needed to have that experience. I think in that moment it was like I was so happy because I was like, I was right. You know, I had this gut feeling that I really needed to have this experience, and I was right. This was the experience that I needed to have, and I needed to have it now at this point in my life. So that was a pretty magic moment. Another thing that made this run around the base of Uluru so fun, and it's part of the reason why road trips and camping trips are so fun, is this sense of community that you have when you're there. So I was there by myself, obviously, and that was part of the reason why this trip was so important. It was a solo road trip adventure for me. Being at Uluru by myself, that felt pretty important. It felt pretty special, but you never, I don't know, for me personally, I never felt lonely a single moment because there was always friendly people around. There was one particular family, it was a mother and a father and two little kids, and they were sort of on those like little double up bikes, with the little kid like strapped into the bike. And because I was running and they were biking, we kept running into each other at the different little stops and stuff, at the little lookouts and things. And it was just, they were just so fun. That was fun, and the little kids were just genuinely just so funny. And um, yeah, running into them, running into several other people that were along the track, and people being really encouraging of me running as well. I think the whole time, like there's, you know, there would have been a couple of hundred people there at some point during that day. Um, of all the people I saw on the track, I only ever saw two other people running it the same way that I was, which was also cool to see. Like I'm glad that there were other people out there that were also running it. Um, but most people were walking it or cycling it. But everyone was so, like, no one treated me like I was a weirdo or anything like that. Like everyone was so encouraging and supportive, which was really, really cool. And yeah, just meeting heaps of people. You know, we were all offering to take photos for each other and things like that. So like you don't need to have someone with you to take photos of your adventure. There's always a friendly other fellow tourist there that will offer to take a photo for you. So that was like a lovely little moment of just this sense of, yeah, community, and we're all having this experience together and really enjoying ourselves. So that was another little highlight of the day for me, for sure. As you're running around the base or walking or biking, whatever you want to do, there's so many signs along the way that tell you some of the stories of the First Nations peoples of whose country Uluru is situated on. And I'd strongly recommend stopping and reading those stories and hearing about the stories of the land. I think it is so important, and as I get older, it's become increasingly important to me to know the true history of the land, not just the, you know, white history of the land, but the original peoples of whose lands we're walking on, knowing the deep history of the land that I was walking on. And I did get this sense that Uluru was just this very peaceful space. And the whole time, I just felt so grateful that the First Nations peoples of this spectacular place share this space with us. So there's plenty of lookouts that tell you the stories and the history of the land. There's two water holes there, which you would just not expect. You know, there's this giant rock in the middle of the desert, and then these amazing tranquil water holes there. So I'll include some photos and some video footage of those water holes. They were just amazing. And once again, I found myself for a few minutes in each of these places completely by myself, which was just amazing. And I even had an opportunity to just sort of sit in silence. I guess you would say it's a bit of a meditation, but it's just sort of sat in silence. And actually, one of the spaces, it even had a little sign there to gently suggest that you do that. You know, take in the sights and sounds of the birds, listen to the water, listen to the breeze through the trees. You know, so they were that whoever put those signs up, that they knew how tranquil and special this place was, and how important it was for you to take a moment to take it all in. So I did exactly that, and I think that was so important as well. So that would be my little pro tip of the day. Make sure you don't rush it. That sounds funny because I'm running it, right? But the moments where you can tell where you need to just pause and take it all in, do that. And again, I think doing it I was doing this in the middle of the day, but because it was winter, it was nice and cool. There was no risk of me overheating or anything like that. So I did have the opportunity to just take my sweet time getting around and stopping and looking at everything that this place has to offer. So I get to the end of the run. I'm feeling pretty great. All the photos and the videos that you're seeing too, by the way, they're all just captured on my iPhone. I've not edited them in any way. There's no filters, nothing, because you know what? No filters required. This place is just so spectacularly beautiful. And I know I've already said this once in this video, but it bears repeating. It is just such a beautiful place. And I think, you know, to sum up, I suppose, I think this experience, it really reinforced to me what I think life is all about. I'm going to get a little philosophical again, but I think this day, I think why this day was so special to me is that it really symbolized the things that I think in life are the most important, and that is the connection to myself, the connection to nature, the natural world around me, and connection to a community bigger than me. So a sense of like humanity, connection to people. So I think, and in all three areas, that was just emphasized so strongly by that day. So in terms of the connection to myself, is like I kept that promise to myself. You know, I told myself this is something I needed to do. I trusted my judgment on that. I trusted that a part of me knew that I needed to have this experience, and I actually honored that promise to myself and made it happen. So what a fantastic gift to give to myself. What a wonderful promise to have kept. I think a connection to my body as well. You know, working hard over the last, you know, nearly 2 years and getting to the place where I'm fit enough, taking good care of my body, where I could run with quite a bit of ease and certainly with joy in this spectacular place. I think once again that was a wonderful gift to have been able to give myself, and just, yeah, just being so in the moment, being able to do that with myself. I think that's such a healing moment for me as well, being able to just so genuinely enjoy my own company, and didn't feel that I needed any other presence there. It was something I could have special just for me. I think that sense of connection to the natural world around me, I think like that's obvious, hopefully obvious from some of the footage I've been able to share, but um, yeah, it's just, yeah, going on these road trips has been such an eye opener for me of just how spectacular my own country is. And my goodness, I almost missed it. You know, I mentioned in my last video, I think had I had all the money in the world, I don't know if I would have come up with the idea of doing road trips. I was never a road trips person up until what, like a year ago. So it was only because of financial reasons that I even started doing these road trips. And my goodness, what I would have missed out on had I not started doing this. And then the sense of the connection to community, just we were all there with the same goal. We were all there to have that experience for ourselves and with each other. Um, you know, talking about how beautiful it was, you know, talking a little bit about how we got there. You know, everyone has a story. You know, I think that's what's so fun about going on road trips too, is that everybody's got their own story of like why they're there, where they've come from, and who they are and what they've been doing. And I've so enjoyed that. That's been such a highlight of my whole trip, was getting to talk to people and share my story and hear their stories. So yeah, this day really emphasized that for me as well, meeting so many beautiful people that day, and being able to encourage each other and share in the joy of what that moment was for all of us. So to sum up the video, if you haven't been to Uluru yet, you have to go. You just have to go. You absolutely must go. It's not called the heart of Australia for nothing. I think it's only when you get there that you realize why. I think a lot of people, I met quite a lot of travelers, and they were speaking about other spectacular landmarks in the area, such as Kata Judah, which I'm going to talk about in probably my next video, as well as Kings Canyon in a future video as well. Some people said that they found Kings Canyon or Kata Judah even more spectacular than Uluru, but I've got to say, everything I saw, spoiler alert, I think Uluru was my favorite. And maybe it was because I had such a connection to that moment in lots of different ways, not just that it was spectacular in terms of the environment, but maybe just because of the special experience and connection I had with that place. But yeah, it was absolutely the highlight of my whole trip. And I guess, yeah, I'll sign off by saying the feeling that I had before I went on this road trip was that, you know, I used to think about Uluru, and I used to think like it'll be so nice when I have a partner. I want to take them there, and I realized it's just, if I ever do have a partner and we go there together, it's going to be special no matter what. I don't have to have my first experience there with them. In fact, I have a calling to go there. I just need to go. I need to go now while I still have an opportunity to do it. You know, that whole thing around like tomorrow isn't promised. There's no guarantee in a few years' time I'll get the chance to do this. So if I have the chance to do it now, I need to do it now. So I scrounged up whatever savings I had, you know, and planned out what I could, and I made the best of it. And I'm so glad that I did. I'm going to do another video just on my overall thoughts of what this road trip meant as a single person doing this solo and someone who was not independent a few years ago. But yeah, I think Uluru was really the highlight for why this is so important. The moment you decide you need to have this experience, taking yourself is enough. In fact, it's everything. It's all you need. So I hope you've enjoyed this. If you've got any other questions about Uluru, or if there's anything you're interested in me covering in the rest of my series about this road trip, please do let me know in the comments. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you soon.